All right, great. It's about 6:03, 6:02. I want to thank everybody who's here for this public visioning session that we're doing virtually. Very excited to have everyone here and to be talking about this great project. What I wanted to do is I think I want to let people know that we are recording this and we're hoping to be able to rebroadcast it later on Easthampton Media, and we'll post it on the Planning Department Facebook page and things like that. I think what we're going to do is we think we'll be done by around 8, if not a little bit before that. So I think we're going to kick it right off. I'm going to do a little welcome and introduction. I think what we're working on with this project is the update of our open space plan, and we have a steering committee. And I just want to go through who's been helping us with this for a little bit. So we have quite a crew of people who almost all of them live in Easthampton and are really just committed to helping us get through this project and look at open space goals for the next 7 years. I really thank these people because already they've given countless hours to start this project off, and so that's a really important thing to acknowledge and say that we appreciate. So the steering committee is Salem Derby, who's a city councilor here in Easthampton, Wendy Hammerall, who is on the Manhattan Rail Trail Committee, Marty Klein, who is on the board of the Pascomic Conservation Trust. And those 3 people are Easthampton residents, just committed to open space. John Mason is our Parks and Rec Director here in Easthampton. Jay Ryan is a Conservation Commission member and also a member of the CPA Committee, which is Community Preservation Act. Brenda Sallier is a Planning Board member here in Easthampton. We have Mary Lou Splain, who is a resident. And she's also, an office manager at Kestrel Land Trust. So she's really just in the mix with land use and open space protection. Garrett Stover is Pascomic's land conservation advisor and just a real expert for all things in Easthampton. And Cassie Traeger is our conservation agent. And as we get started, I do also want to just thank Emily Slotnick, who is our primary consultant here from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, lives in Northampton, really knows a lot about Easthampton, and I just can't thank her enough for her knowledge and support for this project. And Ken Comia is also here with us tonight from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Emily and have her guide us through the evening here. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out and appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. This is a really phenomenal group that we've been working with over the last few months to do this plan update. So my name is Emily Slotnick, as Jeff said. I work for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. I am an environmental and climate adaptation planner, and I work in the land use and environment section. For those of you that aren't familiar, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is your regional planning agency. So there are 13 regional planning agencies in the state. We're one of them. Our service area is Hampden and Hampshire County. So we work with all 43 municipalities in those 2 counties over the years, doing various types of planning work. Our section is focused on land use and environment, but we also have transportation section with economic development. So I'd be surprised if folks on this session are interested in planning that haven't run into us yet, but I always like to make sure that everyone knows who we are, where we're coming from. And the city of Easthampton hired us to help them with their open space and recreation plan update. So I'm going to run through the agenda, which is what you're looking at now. We're going to do introductions. I will talk through the meeting logistics, meaning what the next 2 hours are going to look like. So I've got some instructions for a series of polls that we're going to do, sort of live activities through the PowerPoint or through the presentation. I'm going to talk about what is open space and recreation planning? What is this plan that we're talking about? What will it look like in sort of our interim planning period? And then at the end, We will look at where we are right now, what sort of existing conditions we have uncovered through the committee work thus far, and also what the city has accomplished since the last version of this plan, which was published in 2013. And then finally, we get to the fun part. About halfway through the meeting, we are going to switch over into a participant interactive session. And you all on the call, we're going to basically try to make this as much like a public meeting as we can. We are limited, and we are gracious to all of you for your patience. I'll say that in advance. For those of us that are still working through some of these new digital tools, we are doing our best, and we really think we've found some great ways to make planning work in this new strange world that we're living in right now. So with that, we'll just dive right in. I will say that after that participant interaction session, we will go back to the PowerPoint for like a 5-minute wrap up. So, you know, if folks need to get up or want to come back to us, we will sort of wrap everything up and talk about next steps before we leave. So let's get right into it. Notes on virtual participation. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this stuff over recent months. It's still important. I think it bears repeating, and some of you may not have heard it. So again, the purpose of the meeting is for you all to join in on the planning process. We are hosting this meeting via Zoom, a platform which many of us have grown familiar with since the beginning of the pandemic, and some of us are still getting used to it. So for anyone on the call today that is still new to Zoom, here a couple of tips to remember. If for some reason you get kicked off, we will keep going. We won't know you get kicked off. You can rejoin the same way you joined in the first place. So, you know, whether you accidentally turn off your computer or your cat steps on your keyboard or whatever it is, just find that link that you used to log in initially and click it again. As I said, we'll break up into this interactive exercise in about 35 minutes, where everyone on this Zoom meeting is going to be asked to help the committee brainstorm about planning objectives. I will first be giving a brief presentation to make sure that we all have enough information about that planning process so that we can really be making informed contributions during that exercise. But that's really the meat of the session tonight, is that exercise. So in order for us to get there quickly and efficiently, we are not going to be taking questions during that presentation. So I just want to draw your attention to the chat feature in Zoom. Whoops, go back there. Yeah. So in your controls at the bottom of the window, click the chat bubble if you haven't already. If you're on a mobile device, you have to tap participants and then press chat. The chat window should open on the right side of your screen. If you are not in full screen mode, if you are in full screen mode, it'll open a little window that you can move around your screen. But again, everyone should click that chat button to open the panel. And the reason is that throughout the meeting, if you have any technical issues, you can use that chat function to speak directly to the panelists, so myself or Jeff or Ken or Cassie, and we will help you try to troubleshoot any technical issues you have. So to do that, you type your message in the text box at the bottom of the chat panel, press enter to send the message. We will also be using this chat panel to send links to you that you'll need to follow to participate in the polls. So keep an eye on that. We'll let you know when you need to look at it or when we've dropped a link in, but we just want to make sure that you are able to use that and you know where to find it. You will notice that everyone's microphones, all the participant attendees tonight, your microphones are muted, your cameras are turned off. This is intentional. It's partly to keep the focus on our speakers today, but it is also because of bandwidth. I've been doing these web meetings for, well, we've been all doing them for a few months now, longer than that. And I think one of the greatest challenges is that we don't have the best internet in our region. And so dropping in and out of meetings sometimes has to do with using too much of your bandwidth. Keeping your videos off will help you get a live constant stream from us. So again, reach out to us in the chat if you're having any technical issues. Just keep in mind, we've got limited capacity to address those issues while the webinar is running. We will do our best. We are recording this webinar, so anything that you missed, you can catch up on. It'll be posted on the city's website. Okay, so the last piece of logistics before we get started. In a couple of minutes, we're going to ask you to answer a couple of quick questions, the results of which we will all be able to see in real time. It's really cool. There are 4 ways that you can do that. The first, and I think the way that most of you will choose, is to click on the link that we put in the Zoom chat box. The second easiest way is if you have a smartphone nearby, turn on your camera and hover it over this black circle in the middle of the screen with all the black hash and shapes in it. That's a QR code that will take you directly to this survey on your cell phone. Another way you can do it is you can minimize your screen to open a new tab in your browser and enter the information there. Or if you have none of those options, and if you don't feel comfortable opening up new windows or browsers on your computer while you're watching a webinar, you can text an answer to the number 22333. So we're gonna do a test run. This is not related to the open space and recreation plan, but we want to make sure again that we all have access and know how to use these tools so that we can really do some good work tonight. So let's talk about something that we all might be thinking about by this time of the day. Favorite type of dessert. Cassie is going to drop a link into the chat box. And don't worry about the prompts on the screen that I just flipped away from. I'll give them again when we get to that part of the presentation.
See, the link is in the chat box now, so if you want to click on that.
All right. Very cool. So what do we've got? A lot of people like cake. I am a fruit and ice cream person myself, but looks good. Okay, so it looks like this is working for most of you. Again, if you're having trouble getting to the poll, please use the Zoom chat box, and one of our panelists will try to help you out with that. Okay, we're gonna move right along. Just to finish up on this part, the materials and information from this presentation will all be available after the fact. Here's a link to the city's, the webpage on the city's website, where all of the open space and recreation plan materials are being posted, and then also an email that you can reach out to share input or feedback or ask questions about the process going forward. All right, so what is open space when we're talking about it in terms of an open space and recreation plan? It includes all the things on these slides. So conservation land, forested land, ag land, your farms, athletic fields, playgrounds, parks, small pocket parks, big parks, green buffers along roadways. Sometimes we don't think of those. Undeveloped land of conservation or recreational interest. All of these things are considered when we're doing an open space and recreation plan. So the other part of it is recreation. And we often talk about recreation in terms of active and passive. Both are applicable here, and both are part of the planning process. So active recreation is generally, we often think about team sports, but individual sports as well. So your tennis, your soccer fields, your tennis courts, pools, volleyball, pickleball, all of these things. These are active recreation. Passive recreation is generally any sort of activity, recreational activity that doesn't require a built facility. So you don't need a specific soccer field. You don't need a specific court with lined in a certain way with certain net. So hiking trails, bird watching, even biking to some degree. And there are some gray areas here certainly, but we sort of put these terms up here just to illustrate that this is a broad category that we're looking at here with recreation. Okay, so the open space and recreation plan itself is an assessment of local development and growth patterns relative to all of those topic areas. So relative to open space, natural resources, we even look at cultural and historic resources, all of our recreational facilities. And there's a lot of content and detail that goes into the plan itself, and some of that is bulleted to the right of the slide. That plan components column over there is more or less the chapter breakdown for an open space and recreation plan. So in Massachusetts, these plans, and I'm going to start using the acronym OSRP, they're updated on a 7-year cycle in order to stay current or in order to stay valid. And most Massachusetts communities keep up with that cycle because these plans are a prerequisite for a number of state grant opportunities. Also, a lot of communities don't have a master plan or a comprehensive plan in Massachusetts, and the open space and recreation plan does a lot of the same things that a master plan does, including the public engagement component. So that's another reason why a lot of communities really keep up with these. With every update of the OSRP, a community creates a new 7-year action plan, and that action plan, the purpose of that is to guide our decisions on open space and recreation to meet community goals and objectives. So it's really tying it back to what did we learn during the public engagement part of this process, and what actions do we need to do in the next 7 years to help meet those objectives and goals. So where are we right now in the planning process? These boxes along the bottom of the screen give you sort of a timeline. We've done most of the background research. We are really dead in the center of the public engagement process right now. The public survey, which the committee spent a lot of time creating early on in the process, has been live for about a month. It's going to stay open for another week to make sure that anyone who hasn't been able to take it yet has a chance to do so. Tonight is our first public visioning session. We will have another one after the new year. We are going to be revising the goals and objectives and also the draft action plan after this meeting and after the survey closes, so that we can publish a draft plan for public review over the winter. That second visioning session is going to be in sometime in January. We don't have a date yet. And the purpose of that second visioning session, while today we're really going to be focusing on objectives, that one's going to be focusing on the action plan. So once we get through that, we will have pretty quickly, we'll turn around a final draft plan for a review by city boards and by the Planning Commission and by the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services. These are the key sort of approving bodies for a plan like this. And then the last thing I want to say is just going back to really what Jeff was saying in the beginning, that the OSRP committee, the steering committee, is such a major part of this process. From the very beginning, they're providing guidance and input. They're designing the survey. They're helping to conduct the survey, reviewing every single bit of content that goes into the plan, the goals and objectives, the action plan, et cetera. And then pretty soon they're going to have a lot of reading material as we start pumping out the draft plan in sections, and we'll be asking community members to do reviews of those sections. So if you run into them in the street, say thank you. I thank you all, for those of them that are on the call tonight. Okay, we're going to do another poll, and this is relevant this time to our process. If you don't have the chat panel open on your screen, again, go ahead and click that chat button at the bottom of the Zoom window to open the chat panel, or you can go ahead and scan the QR code to your phone. follow the link, respond, then return to Zoom. So the question we're asking you here is if you haven't yet taken the OSRP survey. Well, the question is if you have or you haven't taken the OSRP survey. And I will say that if you haven't, then we hope you do. So let's see if folks. How we do on this one. All right, I'm not seeing responses coming into this for this survey.
The very bottom of your screen now, I can see total results 23 as a tally, but it's not showing, right?
Right. There we go. All right. So most of us have taken the survey. That's great. Again, if you haven't, the city's website where the open space and recreation plan page is being hosted is where you can get that link.
And can I just say that? So it's it's easthamptonma.gov/OSRP. We tried to make it simple. So
Great.
easthamptonma.gov/OSRP will get you to the page for the survey.
Yeah, actually, Jeff or Cassie maybe can put that right into the chat box here so that folks can have that. We also have it on the last screen of the presentation to make it easy. All right, so I've talked quite a bit about updating goals and objectives being a big part of the plan update process and what we're here for tonight. So I want to take a look at the goals right now. And so that we are all using the same terminology here, a planning goal is something, in this case, it's a major aspiration that the city intends to realize, at least initiate over the next 7 years, as our planning cycle for the OSRP is 7 years. Goals can be ambitious, they can even be audacious, but we do want them to be attainable in principle. And we want to remember that achievement of a specific goal is going to represent a major improvement to the city's open space and recreation conditions. And if not totally achieving something, definitely significant progress towards the realization of the city's overall vision in this plan. So I'll read the goals briefly. The first is existing recreational facilities and opportunities are improved to meet the needs of residents. Goal number 2 is recreation facilities and opportunities are expanded to accommodate the needs of residents. Goal 3 is that agriculture is preserved and promoted as an important aspect of community character. 4, priority protection areas are protected and well stewarded and support connectivity to protected open space. And lastly, goal number 5, groundwater and surface water are protected as clean and abundant resources. So these goals are carried over from the 2013 plan as still relevant, but we're going to ask everyone here to help us validate that, and then also to get some ideas that can help build out sort of a broad vision statement for this version of the OSRP. And so that's what we're going to do on the next poll. So there we go. Vision statements, different from goals, are broad and wide-ranging. They look towards the future, and they're sort of all encapsulating, whereas the goals were pretty specific in subject matter. The last OSRP, so the 2013 plan, followed the vision statement and included a vision statement from the 2008 master plan that was a really important document for the city, and the last OSRP was coming sort of on the heels of that. So they sort of borrowed the master plan vision statement for the OSRP. We want to have a vision statement that's more OSRP specific here. So this next poll question is going to ask you to come up with a couple of ideas or concepts, just short statements that could be a part of a long-term vision for Easthampton's OSRP. And this is, I know it's not really easy to think about these like broad vision type statements at the drop of a hat. I think one of our committee members said about this exercise, it's difficult to get right into philosophical mode. But that's kind of what we're asking of you. So, but we've provided some example snippets of visioning statements from other plans. So like natural resources are protected and enjoyed by all, or our parks and rec facilities are safe, high quality. We have a broad array of recreational programs for people of all ages, all abilities, and all socioeconomic backgrounds. Open space is an integral component of community development at all the various scales. So, you know, these are pretty well thought out. We're looking for some ideas. We want to get people's brains working in this way, because this is really the type of brainstorming we're going to be doing later on tonight. So I'm going to activate this poll, and then just a note here. Because this is an open-ended response poll, you can actually vote on other entries by clicking the thumbs up icon next to that entry. So we'll see how that looks as they come in here. So for those of you that are still just getting into this poll, the title is, or the question I said is, complete the sentence, I envision Easthampton as a community where ... And that could be very broad. We're just going to ask you to think about it in terms of open space and recreation for this exercise. All right, so we're seeing a couple here. So what you're seeing on my screen, once you've added your entry in the poll, you'll see these come in, and on the left hand, you'll see suggestions that people have made that other people have voted on and said that they agree with. So lots of trails, protect lots of open space and water quality. That's great. Yeah, some really great ideas here. Farmland is valued as important to our food security in addition to its value to community character. These are really well thought out. I'm impressed, guys. Lots of trails, varied length and vigor or rigor. Everyone has access to nearby open space, and there's more protected farmland to grow food. Great. Whoops. Open space and recreational facilities are equitable, accessible, welcoming, and especially, oops. Well, can't find that one. Bike paths are all, reach all neighborhoods. Great. So you all can, if you're in the middle of completing a thought in this poll, please keep typing. I'll keep it open. I'm going to move on to the next slide, but there will be lots of time for us to share more ideas like this. As it is right now, we are going to be going back to this poll after the workshop's over. And we'll be taking all of these suggestions and bringing them into a committee meeting to help formulate a vision statement for the plan. Okay, so now we're going to give you a break from the polls for a little bit. We're going to talk for a while, starting with an overview of where we are right now, where we stand in the process, both in terms of the priorities and then with the planning steps. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple of slides that talk about the public survey results as they stand. Well, most of the slides are going to show images from about 4 days ago. But I checked this morning, we had 520 responses, which is really, really exciting. I think we can still get a couple more in the last week that the survey is open. But again, the graphics on the slides are from a few days ago. When I looked this morning, most of the percentages have remained pretty stable. So that's good. So what we're going to start with just who's taking the survey. It's a fairly even split of respondent age groups, even though we are lacking with the under 18 respondents, and that's every community I've ever worked in. That is true. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep trying to get these young people to respond. So if any of you are at home watching along or participating tonight, and you have a young person who could spare 10 minutes to take the survey, really encourage you to ask them to do so. The chart on the right here is showing of the people who have taken the survey so far, do they live within a 10-minute walk of a park or open space that they use? Good news is that more than 3/4 of us do, and do have a park within 10-minute walking, and you're using it. So that's great. So questions 4 through 7, I want to say that I'm not going to go through every single question on the survey. This is going to be sort of a highlight. Questions 4 through 7 asked generally about which facilities and conservation areas you use and how often are you using them. This slide here shows sort of a quick look at the most used facilities, and that's again across a number of questions. So what we see here is results that really echo sentiments from the 2013 plan in most ways. And also results that confirm that the Nantucket Park Promenade, which wasn't built at the time of the 2013 plan, has become one of the most popular places in the city. And that's along with the Manhan Rail Trail and Mount Tom State Reservation. So also the Nashwanik Pond, sorry, I said Nantucket Park Promenade, Nashwanik Pond Promenade. So no big surprise there. Next, a quick look at how many people who took the survey don't know where some of the conservation areas, some of the other conservation areas or recreation facilities are. So we asked this about both conservation areas and recreational facilities. And again, this is sort of a high-level summary. At the most, 58% of respondents didn't know where the Gustina conservation area was. So Gustina, Hannonbrook, John Bader Park, and Burkowski Conservation Area were the 4 with the most people who said they didn't know where they were. One action that often comes out in open space and recreation plans is to improve marketing or signage of the recreational and open space resources in a community. And that's for this purpose, to make sure that everyone can easily know about and find these resources. It's great to have them, but if residents don't know about them, it's sort of only half the battle. All right, so question number 9 asked respondents to check all of the recreational activities that they do in Easthampton, and to comment about the condition and maybe the needs of those facilities or the facilities that they use for those activities. I will go ahead and say to anyone who's taken the survey, I realize that this is a big question with a lot of material in it and sometimes challenging to answer. So we appreciate folks that stuck with it. The good news sort of resulting from this question is that a lot of Easthampton residents are getting out and about, using city resources, using city recreational facilities, open spaces, etc. Also, not surprising that the most people want to see improvements or expansion at the facilities that most people are using. In other words, respondents want to improve the places that are getting the most use anyways. So that's what this slide is showing. We've got arts and cultural events, which are hugely popular in Easthampton. We want to see them expanded and improved. Walking on road or on the sidewalk, walking, hiking, off-road on trails, same thing. these are the areas where, in fact, most of the responses that said they wanted improvements and expansion are in those areas. So when we do something a lot, we want more of it. And I think that's what this slide is showing mostly, but also there is wear and tear that happens when you have your most used facilities. And sometimes that's important to point out, just that maintenance needs are a real factor, especially when you have really popular places. All right, so question number 11 asked about potential focus areas for conservation. The 2013 plan identified 4 priority areas, and they were Mount Tom, Manhan River, Park Hill, and the Aquifer for land conservation. And the question in the survey this year offered 9 smaller areas to choose from to get a little bit more specific about conservation priorities. The land around Mount Tom and Park Hill were rated as the highest priorities based on the survey results, as of this week. As a side note here, in the previous question on the survey, so question number 10, respondents highlighted drinking water protection. So question 10 was, how important is it to you to protect these natural resources in Easthampton? And of all of the responses, the 2 drinking water ones, so 97% of people responded saying groundwater aquifer protection is very important. And 91% of people said that protection of rivers, streams, and ponds is very important. So I just wanted to acknowledge here that some water resources in Easthampton and in all Massachusetts communities have some baseline protections that are sort of built into our regulatory structure in Massachusetts. So the Wetland Protection Act, floodplain overlay district, if you're an NFIP community, or if you have a FEMA floodplain in your community, zone 2 drinking water protection in some cases. So all of these things are really good. And some of them can be taken further, and that's also part of the process. But other areas like Park Hill and Mount Tom, the slopes of Mount Tom, they don't have those same protections. So it makes sense in this question that Mount Tom and Park Hill are sort of rising to the top as priorities for protection, given that these landscapes are perhaps the most vulnerable to development, or perhaps that's the understanding based on the protection of water resources. So in any case, responses from both questions pretty much support the 4 priority areas from the 2013 plan. So that's good, that's validating. So that's the last slide I'm going to talk about from the survey. Once the survey is closed, we will post the full responses to the project website. So anyone who really wants to get into the data, you'll have plenty of fodder to look through there. And then, of course, the committee is going to be reviewing all the responses, as will my team, and we'll be folding that into the objectives and the action plan as appropriate. So I'm going to hand it off to Jeff for a couple of slides here.
Great, thank you. That's a lot of information. It's really valuable for us to be moving forward with the survey responses. So again, if you have a chance to take it over the next 10 days, it'd be great. One component that we're going to just talk about briefly is part of this update is going to each of the properties, conservation areas, and park and rec areas, and doing an updated ADA survey. So it's Americans with Disabilities Act. And it's important for us to do this. This image here shows the playground at Plain Street and Strong Street. And there haven't been many changes there recently, but what we want to do with these surveys is create a baseline number of improvements that we should be looking for funding for, simply to upgrade our existing facilities and make sure that they're accessible to people, if they have mobility issues or need other accommodations. We really want to be looking at that sort of all the time. And so I do want to thank John Mason and his team, because they have the most facilities and the most areas to do. And Cassie's going to be doing some of our conservation areas. So it's team effort. It's an important part of this to get this baseline data. So I think I'll go on to the next slide. From the 2013 plan, there were a lot of goals and strategies and objectives outlined. And what we wanted to highlight quick is some major successes. So is there a way to change the slide? I don't know who's doing that, sorry. You can go to the next one. So what we're looking at here is not every single, if you go back one, sorry, not every single item is listed here, but these are the big ones. These are the ones that, you know, people spent countless hours to make happen. And it started with establishing them in the plan. So the car top boat launch is on Water Street, and that was installed in 2015, and that was listed in the plan. And it's really important for us to highlight that we do have, you know, canoe and boat access on Nash Pond, and it's a great boat launch. It's really important for us. And then really complementing the National Pond is the promenade. So that was also completed in 2015. And those two projects combined have really given us this great opportunity to highlight the water resources that we have. The promenade on any weekend for all of us in Easthampton, you know, you get ice cream and you go down there and there's just a lot of people. It's been just outstanding to see how those two improvements have activated the pond, and they're really important. And so that's something that, as we're doing sticky note exercises later, be thinking about the things that we want to put on this list to try to work on over the next 7 years. So the next slide, please. This is Mutter's Field. It's an accessible trail that was finished in 2016. This is really a project that Pascomic Conservation Trust spearheaded and really just applied such concerted effort and team thought to taking this 6-acre parcel and putting together, you know, it's about an 1,800 foot loop that is handicapped accessible. There's benches, there's kiosks, and there's you know, gazebos. And this is just really a gem for us, that the parking area on East Street provides a handicapped accessible ramp down, and then the other access is off East Green Street. So this is again, this is a project that was on the list, and this is a project that people put time and effort to accomplish. So it's really important to look at these successes over the past, you know, 7 to 10 years. These two are conservation efforts. So the image on the left is Cook and County Road. Most of the property is actually in Southampton, but in 2017, the city partnered with the town of Southampton. Both communities used their Community Preservation Act funds to pool together to preserve 25 acres. And the reason why this is really important is because it's over our aquifer. So now this is permanently protected to help, you know, keep our aquifer clean and available to us in the future. And then the image on the right is the property on East Street, which was acquired last year. Our partnership with Kestrel Land Trust and Pascomic Conservation Trust again is just a real, you know, highlighting how this property in this area has been on a list for 20 years, and all the stars kind of aligned to put together funding through CPA and through a park grant to acquire the property. And you know, the goal has been from day one to create a parking area kind of where the hand is there right on East Street, that is going to lead to another handicapped accessible trail to the lookout. So this is a property that's going to give access to people that, you know, people of all ages and mobility levels are going to get access to this unique property. And I wanted to just say quick that this morning we learned that the city actually received the park grant that we have applied for the construction of the trail. So all day I've been like holding it in and so excited. So the state granted us $374,000 towards the construction of a parking area and trail. And our Community Preservation Act fund has contributed $176,000. This is a huge project. $550,000 will create the parking area and the accessible trail to a lookout at the top with benches and things. And so you hear it here first, but we're very excited about that. And it's really just kind of planning that really makes it work. So we've done, so those are actual tangible successes. And what we've done a lot of additional work in planning and evaluating and getting documents together that really give us the foundation to apply for funding to actually make this stuff happen. That's really important for people to know, is that you can't just pick a project out of a hat and say, we're ready to go. The state and the funding sources really expect community input, plan, and really evaluating the property and what's the best uses. So we've worked with the Conway School a couple of times. 2015, this is a parcel that's behind Parsons Street School. It's about an acre, and it's city owned and it's vacant. And so we have a study in hand that helps look at, reusing that space, whether it's for community gardens or passive recreation. And so that's one of the projects that we hope to see come forward in the next, couple of years. It's not shown anywhere here, but we also did a study of the Park Hill area, which Emily mentioned is a really important area for agricultural resources. Park Hill Orchards up there. And the takeaway of that is there are some restrictions because it's agricultural land, but one of the potential opportunities for us there is cross-country skiing trails. So there's opportunity in the winter to use the area to create winter trails. And then we recently sort of paused our dog park study. COVID-19 kind of really just kind of put a pause on this, but we worked with Berkshire Design Group to evaluate 7 properties, and kind of at the end, a couple new properties came to light that maybe we should consider. So that might be a project that we pick up maybe in the spring, but it's really important because that's on the list. So 7-10 years ago, it was identified by a group of people. Let's look for a dog park. It's definitely a resource that we might want to have in Easthampton. And then these are expand the rail trail. And so while we might not have actually physically expanded the rail trail at all in the past 7 years, we've done a lot of planning work to look at what connections we might want to make in the future. We did upgrade a couple crossings. The Ferry Street project will make the crossing of the Manhan much safer, and Union Street is also going to do that too. But this first project here with Conway School is sort of a global look at connectivity. So how can we make additional connections for bicycles and pedestrians? And one of the key elements of this project is the realization that we are going to have a new school at the Whitebrook property. And we have a couple opportunities to, over the next 7 years, make trail access, whether it's paved, whether it's 10 feet wide and paved, or 8 foot wide and gravel, but to make these paths much more accessible to the school. And this one lays out this foundation. So it lists about 12 projects that we should be pursuing over time. And the next slide is sort of one more level in from that global plan. And this project we finished this past summer. This looks at trying to make a pedestrian and bike connection from the Plains to the new school. So the Plains, as many of you are familiar, is an area that's outlying, but it houses hundreds of school-age children who, as we relocate to this school, we have opportunity to connect through open space parcels here. And so from the big picture, we're narrowing it down to this project and look at trying to gather public input and potentially pursue funding for this in the future. So then the last one is also the same idea of connections. It also highlights that our water resources can often be a barrier. So this is the green plan here is a plan from 2002. And if you squint really hard in the middle, there's the idea of resurrecting a pedestrian bridge over Lower Mill Pond. The neighborhood to the south, is New City, and it's sort of the Briggs Street neighborhood, Everett Street. And there is an opportunity to potentially, if you think big, to put a new pedestrian bridge back over that used to be there when the mills were active for manufacturing, put a new bridge over. And what this would do is it would bring people from the Everett Street neighborhood to the rail trail. And then if you're on the rail trail, then you can get around town. And so it's a really important connector concept that we have, and we want to see this come to fruition. There's a UMass student who's going to do his graduate project this coming summer, and is going to do some community outreach on this. So it's really exciting. So these are the types of projects that we want to continue to pursue over the next 7 years. So I think that's about it for me. We're going to move on to the next session.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
I mean, just an amazing snapshot, really, because that's not even everything of what you guys have accomplished over the last 7 years. So it's a big shoes to fill for the next period of time. So we are really going to dive right into our exercise now. Our primary aim over the next say 45 minutes is to develop objectives for the 5 goals, which I will show again shortly, but only briefly. I'm gonna ignore what a goal is because I've already talked about that. An objective. So an objective is concrete and measurable, represents a milestone on the way to achieving a goal. They should be relevant and significant with respect to the applicable goal. And so, we're gonna go through this goal by goal, so that should be pretty easy to do. Achieving an objective, again, should mean that you've made progress towards achieving that goal. We want to keep them as measurable as possible. If we can include a timeline in an objective, saying we want to protect this many acres of land in this many years, or we want to improve park accessibility in this many parks over this period of time. And then we should remember that these are, while we want to be measurable and specific as possible, they're not actions in and of themselves. An objective can be achieved by taking discrete action steps. So every objective should lend itself to formulation of a coherent set of actions. And again, the action is one of a few specific steps that you take to achieve that objective. So these are the goals. I had sort of pre-filled into here some example objectives from the 2013 plan. I'm not going to read these out. Our committee members and our facilitators here have these 2013 objectives, and when we get into the exercise, if folks need some encouragement or need some ideas, we'll start dropping in those 2013 objectives so that we can see them. But I really want to get into the exercise. So again, the purpose of all of this is so that the committee can have your input to craft a revised set of objectives for this 2021 OSRP. And these new objectives are going to be the foundation for that action plan, which you will all be able to help us work through at the next public meeting. But we're gonna be working over the next 2 months really to draft that action plan so that we've got something to work from at the next meeting. So again, we're looking for objectives, not actions, but if we get actions, we will take them and we will table them and we'll work them in. So this beautiful image is what we're going to be looking at for the next half an hour or so. So a lot of our offline meetings back in the day before the pandemic, they were run by sticky note activities. So we have brought them online to hopefully be just as powerful and just as easy to use. So when you follow the next link that Cassie's going to put into the Zoom chat box, you will arrive at a webpage that looks essentially like this. Before we go there, we have a 5-minute video. It's a tutorial we are going to play for everyone. It's going to save us a lot of time. It's very straightforward, and it sort of just covers exactly what we need to know to be able to use this tool efficiently. I'll say a couple things before we go there. We suggest that you do not try to do this on your cell phone. If you've been following along on the cell phone, you can follow along, but it's a lot harder to use the tool from a cell phone. Jeff and I will be facilitating the exercise as we go through it. So what we'd have you do is keep the Zoom going on in the background so that you can hear us, but you don't need to be seeing the Zoom screen anymore. And lastly, if you have any trouble with Miro, you can still use the Zoom chat box to communicate with Cassie and Ken. So all of that is going to be in this little tutorial video. I'm going to hand my screen over to Ken so he can play the video, and then I'll jump back in after these 5 minutes and we'll get started in the exercise.
All right, thanks, Emily. Let me put this video up for you all. Okay.
Hi everyone. So I'm going to show you how to use our next tool. This is totally different from the polling tool we used earlier. And you probably were doing that on your phone, but this one we want you to be able to use on your desktop because you'll have more functionality that way. Once I send you the link, you can try it on your phone, but it might be easier on the desktop. What I'm going to show you is how to minimize Zoom without closing it, and then a little tutorial on actually using the brainstorming program. So the first step is you're probably in full screen right now. You're going to want to move your cursor so that all your tools become available. And in the top right, you'll see the exit full screen button. You can also exit by pressing the escape key on your keyboard, but I'm going to click the button. And as you can see, it's a smaller screen now, but it's still open. We want you to be able to hear the discussion that's going on amongst the moderators. So that's why we don't want you to close it quite yet. You might need to minimize, but again, don't close. So then you're going to open your internet browser. I'm using Chrome. Move this guy. And then you're going to post the link into the search bar. And I'll be posting that link in the chat box within Zoom here in a bit. But right now, I just want to show you how it works first. And basically what we're trying to do is simulate an in-person brainstorming session that we probably do in City Hall. So the way it works is we're going to have a number of sticky notes that people can write on, and other people can then kind of share their opinions about. This way we'll have all these ideas saved for later use when we're working on the open space plan. All right, so you probably are going to be seeing a lot of cursors moving around. Everyone who's manipulating this will see everyone else's work simultaneously. If that gets a little confusing, you can go up here to your settings option, and you're gonna click on this and turn off collaborators' cursors. If it has a check mark, that means you'll be able to see them. But if you click it once, the check mark goes away, and you should only see your cursor from there on out. There probably also will be a lot of pop-up boxes asking you to take tutorials and trying to teach you new things, but we really only need these few tools. The next thing that's important is adjusting your view. You might be really zoomed in or really zoomed out. If you click and drag, you can move the screen around, but also down here in the bottom right, where this percentage number is, you can hover over that, and then you'll be able to zoom in or zoom out, depending on clicking the plus or minus button. There's other goals available, but Emily will be controlling our view and moving us over to those as we get to each task. So when you are ready to put your ideas on the sticky note, you're going to click a sticky note and double click until you get that line flashing in the middle in the cursor symbol. That's how you know you're ready to type. And you can enter your idea. And everyone else will be able to see what you've written here in real time. If you see another idea that you really like, let's zoom in a little. What you can do is you can click on an idea and add an emoji. So this toolbar will come up, you click the little smiley face, and then you'll see all these options for faces and opinions to put on the sticky note. Click the one you like, and you'll see it'll appear down here. When you find if you agree with any of these emojis, you can click on it and it'll put a little number 2 there instead. But if you put an emoji by accident that you don't want included, you can click on it and it'll be removed. You can only remove your own emojis though. If you click on one, you'll vote for it, and then if you click it again, it'll just remove your vote. So like I said, Emily will be kind of directing this and moving things around, but otherwise the main thing is just getting your ideas on these sticky notes and then upvoting them and adding your emojis as you go. The last thing is that if you find this to be too confusing or you get stuck and you have questions, you can always go back to Zoom and use the chat function instead. I'll be posting all of the goals that we're working on and looking for ideas for within the chat. And then also any of your ideas that you put in the chat, I'll make sure to transfer over to the brainstorming session so everyone else can see them. If you have any questions or you're having any trouble, again, just put them in the chat and I'll be here to help. All right, have fun.
Awesome. So thanks, a huge thanks to Cassie for putting that together. So with that, I'm going to ask Cassie to put the link into the chat box for Miro. And I am going to watch as everyone sort of funnels in. So once the link is in that chat box, as Cassie said in the video, again, you don't want to try this on your cell phone. a reminder not to close Zoom, just minimize it so you can hear Jeff and I talking as we work through the sticky note exercise. We're going to be in Miro in this sort of sticky note exercise board exclusively for about 40 minutes. And then we'll finish with a 5-minute wrap up back in Zoom. We have this meeting scheduled from 6 to 8. So it's just 7 o'clock now. I think this gives us a good amount of time. I like to get done early with meetings. That helps me keep people coming back. So the goal will be to try to take no more than 45 minutes for this exercise. So once you're in the Miro board, we're going to give this first goal a couple more minutes so that we can take some time to get connected to the platform and navigate the tools. And if you want to get started, if you're comfortable, jump right in and write your thoughts on a sticky note. Ken is going to be sharing his screen of what this looks like on Zoom. So again, if anyone has trouble getting into Miro, you can watch it happen on Zoom and give your thoughts in the chat box. So what I'm seeing right now is a lot of cursor activity, which is great. A reminder, if you go up to the top right-hand corner of your board, where you see a little blue arrow off to the sort of northwestern position, you can click on that and hide the other collaborators' cursors if you feel like it's getting too busy. But when you feel ready, I'd say go ahead and write up one or more objectives that you think the city could take to achieve this goal. So again, goal number 1 is that existing recreational facilities and opportunities are improved to meet the needs of residents. And the little reminder in the thought bubble down there about what types of things we want to think about when we're creating objective statements. And also Cassie's going to let us all know when we've spent maybe 5 minutes on this, when we should wrap up with the sticky notes that we're working on, so that we can take some time to really zoom in and see what other people have said. And then we can give a thumbs up or a heart emoji or whatever you choose, a smiley face, to some of those other entries that we like.
And I'll just jump in real quick. I think when we practice this, the cursor activity will reduce as people figure out how to click in and start typing. So just hang in there. It's a little busy at first.
So we've got a couple coming in here: neighborhood access to the rail trail. Got a great sort of dancer person symbol down here. Increase and improve walking. Create a master plan for Nonotuck Park. Ooh, outdoor rink at Amelia, like Amelia in Westfield. Creating a trail behind cemetery to connect to Brickyard Brook.
And I would just say, take your time. It takes a few minutes to get used to this, and we are going to spend a little bit more time on this one as people get oriented.
Yeah, and as the moderator on this board, what I'll do every now and again is I have the capability to bring everyone's cursors back to where I am, which is helpful because sometimes you can get lost if you scroll too far to one side or the other. So if you feel like you're floating out there in the ether and can't find the objective or the goal that we're all working on, just hang tight. I will bring you back. All right, so we've got some good ideas here. Loop walking path, share a brochure of places to access. That sort of goes back to that survey question where people were telling us they don't know where things are. So I'm even going to start, as we're working here, I'm going to start moving some of these around to group like suggestions. So working with Southampton to expand the rail trail, for instance, I'm going to move this down here and put some other rail trail ideas there. So we've got expand rail trail connectors, neighborhood access to rail trails, prioritize connecting the new school to the bike path with year-round access. It's great, really specific.
And I think Cassie's probably working on this, but someone asked, how can they turn their cursors off again? A little reminder of how to do that.
Yeah, so when you see the full board, you want to go up to the right-hand side, upper right-hand side of your screen, and you should see next to all the circles with initials in them, to the left of that, there should be a blue arrow, a cursor arrow with 2 dashes above it, and the cursor arrow is sort of in a pointing northwest. And you hover over that, a little pop-up should come up that said hide collaborators' cursors. That's what you want to click. And as soon as you click that, you should just be seeing your own cursor. You'll still see some activity on the board as other collaborators enter in their sticky notes, but you'll only see one cursor.
Perfect, thanks.
All right. I'm gonna try to put this one into, there we go. All right, how are we doing on time, Cassie?
Yep, I think it's time to move on to the next one.
Great. Why don't we just, before we jump out of this goal, why don't we take a minute? Remember the zoom function. So I'm zooming by scrolling on my mouse, pulling the wheel towards me to zoom in to be able to see everyone's suggestions here. And I'd like folks to take a minute to zoom in and really look at some of these, and take an opportunity to add some emojis if you haven't already. I see some emojis on these now, which is great. Know that this is not in any way it's going to start talking about voting, which is so much a part of our world right now. We're not trying to be technical about this. We're trying to have fun, and we're also trying to keep on a time schedule, and that's really what the emoji exercise is about. If we all are not going to have enough time to put all of our ideas down here, so we want to take advantage of our friends and colleagues and neighbors who are coming up with some ideas that we can sort of say, hey, yeah, me too, I feel that way too. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to uncover the second goal. I'm going to move my screen over there, and in about 10 seconds, you all should be, your screen will shift to be looking at this goal. So just want to give everyone a heads up that in about 10 seconds, if you haven't already made your way there, your screen is going to be moved to be looking at the second goal, and then we'll get started entering ideas on that sticky note. All right, here we go. I see everyone with me now on goal number 2.
It worked.
All right. So, yeah, something funky happening. There we go. All right, so goal number 2 is recreational facilities and opportunities are expanded to accommodate the needs of all residents. Again, this can be active or passive. Got a picture of the community gardens there. One example that I put in was expand the sidewalk network to create connections to the rail trail. And we already saw from goal 1 and some of the input of our participants here that was echoed in goal 1. So there can be overlap. Again, the goal 1 and goal 2 are similar, but they're different in that one is talking about improving and the other is talking about expanding to accommodate the needs of all residents. And again, just for folks, as a reminder, on the sticky notes, pick a note, double click, and you'll see the cursor. And that's when you want to start typing. That's the best way to enter an idea and keep it on a sticky note. And you can choose any of the sticky notes that already have like the idea on the top row, idea 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are as good as blank. So you can try that as well. Move this over there. So improvements to the park at Federal and Parsons Street, great. Improve and expand sidewalks. I'm going to move that up here. No snow. Let's see what this says. No snowmobiling near residents. I'm just going to take that and type it into a sticky note here. Improve access to information about recreational opportunities across town. Great. Let's see what we have here. Create a bike and pedestrian connection over Hisgan Ave from the rail trail to Nonotuck. Okay. All right, so we've got a couple talking about kiosks here. Improve access to information about rec opportunities across age and income spectrums. Great. Map of bicycle friendly roads. So I'm going to move that up here with this other suggestion, list of trails and parks with a map. Bridge and path from Nashua, a boat ramp through the park to the new school.
Hey, Emily, I just wanted to give a 3-minute warning for this goal.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you feel like you've wrapped up giving whatever you want to contribute, you can scroll around, zoom in on other people's sticky notes now and add some emojis. I'm going to bring everyone back to me just in case anyone got lost into another part of the board here. Let's see what this one is. Add viewing deck on rail trail overlooking Oxbow. Great.
These are some really good ideas. It's really helpful. This is a great brainstorming session. This is a great way to do it. It's fun.
Expand mountain biking at Borkowski.
And what we talked about as a small group, just for people who are listening and participating in this element, is if for some reason we don't mention your idea specifically, it's all going to get collected and reviewed and incorporated into our additional work moving from here. So it's important to just get the note in there. Don't think that if we don't mention it, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, and one of the things that Jeff and I had sort of prepared to do is start sorting these, which is something I do in live in public workshops a lot, but we didn't get to practice with 12 or 20 participants. So I'm finding it really great just to read through some of these and sorting through some, but mostly just trying to read them out so that we can all hear what's going on.
Hey, Emily, I just want to let you know we've been on this for 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Repave key roads used as connectors by cyclists. Yeah, so there are just a lot of great ideas here. All right, so I am going to unhide the next goal, the next board, which will be to the right. I'm going to scroll over there myself, and in about 10 seconds, I will bring all of you to me so we can move on to this one. Oops. All right, so everyone should now be looking at goal number 3. I'm going to shut down goal number 2. And yeah, same deal. Double click on one of those stickies. Goal number 3, agriculture is preserved and promoted as an important aspect of community character. So the example that we brought in here was create recreational opportunities on agricultural land. So that's kind of, I mean, I think, Jeff, what you mentioned earlier was a great example of that is finding ways to maybe use some of the ag land in the Park Hill area for cross-country ski opportunities. Yeah, no net loss of agricultural land. That's a great one. Program to get local farm food into schools. Going to move some of these shapes out of the way. Use ag land for community gardens. Map of public trails near or in the farmland. I'm gonna move some of these together. Hiking trails near ag land. Got another no net loss.
Yeah, I see a great one for a trail connection between Park Hill and Lathrop using the old path, the existing old pathways. That's a good one. They're all good.
Yeah, some great ideas about gardens, community gardens, expand community gardens, co-sponsored residential pollinator gardens program, botanical garden with fountain, pumpkin patch. Yeah, I'm moving some of these around to be sort of with their like counterparts. Add edible landscapes to parks. That's great. Harvest festival. Some really, really nice ideas about thinking about food systems and supporting local ag as part of our sort of arts and culture
Hey, Emily, I'm just letting you know 3 minutes on this
Okay,
one.
great, thanks. Bring back gleaning. I will be totally honest and say I don't know what that means. Jeff?
No, I don't know either.
I know what gleaning is.
All right, share.
Gleaning is when people would come and harvest the less than perfect produce from a field. But it has some more modern interpretations. It could be part of like edible parks and things like that. But mainly it's just using unharvested produce.
Great. I love that idea.
Feel free to correct me in the chat if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, a lot of ideas about community gardens. So why don't we, if you've wrapped up or if maybe finished the thought that you're working on, and then start looking at other contributions and go through and give some positive emojis. Create education about migration corridors for wildlife. That's really nice. More ag land for community gardens.
There was one about creating new garden plots at the create garden plots at the new K-8 school. I think it's great. That's a good one as well.
A couple ideas about harvest parades, harvest festivals. Support young farmers and use of local farmlands to help get going. That's awesome.
Hey, Emily, just let you know we've been on this for 5 minutes.
Thanks.
And this was the point in the meeting. We still have quite a few participants, which is great. We're almost to the end. So if you hang in there for a little bit longer, this is sort of the end. We wanted to end on a high note with sticking
Yeah.
in.
So we've got 2 goals left. I am going to make my way over to goal 4. Actually, first I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to go over there, and then in about 10 seconds, I will bring you all to me. So you will be abruptly removed from goal 3 and brought into goal 4. And while we're waiting for that, I will read goal 4, which is that priority protection areas are protected and well stewarded and support connectivity to protected open space. All right, and I'm bringing everyone to me now. So you should be able to see again the goal 4 in the top left-hand corner. You're not probably going to be able to see much detail on this, but I dropped in a map image here in the bottom left. It's priority areas for protection. This was based on a study that PVPC, my agency, did in 2014 around the region, and you can actually zoom in if you like. It's the resolution is pretty good if you wanted to take a look, but it does show some areas for a number of different reasons that could be considered priority for protection. All right, so just looking what we're seeing here, provide free trees for residents like Northampton does. Engage community volunteers for stewardship. Looks like someone's moving around the board images here. Mill Pond Bridges, all right. More parking areas for Mount Tom, sure. Create a protected greenway along the Manhan River. That was a carryover from 2013. Education for abutters to conservation areas regarding conservation interests and responsibilities. That's really nice. I'm just gonna take this one here and put it into a sticky note instead of a circle so that we can read it. So that stewardship should include elimination of non-native invasives and encourage natives. Yeah. So a couple ideas about volunteers here: recognizing community volunteers, engaging community volunteers for stewardship, but recognizing them. I think that's really important. Protecting the aquifer, protecting priority habitats through conservation. I'm going to move this one up, continue to protect parcels adjacent to Mount Tom. And I'm going to move this one over here, another nod to protecting Mount Tom area. Preserving wildlife corridors, that's a really great mention there. You know, we know, and we have data that shows us what our important corridors are, what our important connections are. So keeping that in mind. Protect remaining farmland along East Street at the base of Mount Tom. So there's another one in that area. And we've got a couple about access to Mount Tom, so parking area and pedestrian access. I'm going to move this CR monitoring training for volunteers over to the volunteer group. There's another one about invasives. Yeah, great. Going to move that one over. Video surveillance at Millside Park.
Hey, Emily, I'm just letting you know it's been 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks. All right, judicious use of solar farms. Signage on storm drains highlighting their connection to the aquifer. So that's great. That's there have been a couple here that I've seen that have to do with stormwater management. I think there was one about bioswales somewhere. Ensure wild spaces are a priority in addition to recreation. Yep. Oh, Cassie, here's a nod to your role. Fund a full-time conservation agent position.
I promise I did not add that, but I will give it a thumbs up.
Yeah. Educate residents that open space can bring visitors and bring capital to local businesses. I think that's great. Yeah, thinking about open space as an economic driver. One of the questions that I didn't highlight, but from the survey that we asked is, you know, are you using your open spaces and recreational facilities in Easthampton more since the pandemic? And overwhelmingly, the response has been yes. And I think, you know, we sort of suspected that early on when we got into this planning process, for a lot of reasons, economic development and just social cohesion. We're learning a lot more about the value of these open spaces.
And if you're still hanging in there, you can add the emojis that we were going to note that we didn't. I don't think we encouraged that last time. It's helpful for us to see if people. It's not imperative, but it's helpful for us to see if people are agreeing. I see some emojis popping up there.
Yeah, same. So, and a couple thoughts here about really keeping wild areas wild. You know, don't disturb habitat and waterways with foot traffic, and that's a valid thought as well. Create a bylaw to prevent removal of trees of a certain size in face of development. So that, to me, seems to be going along with you know, thoughts of judicious use of solar farms and other regulatory considerations to protect natural resources.
Hey, Emily, just let you know it's been 5.5 minutes on this one.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we're getting some really great thoughts here. Try to establish some safe areas for people to create safe areas to kayak on the Connecticut River in the Oxbow area where motorboats don't take over. Definitely. Educating dog walkers about dog waste disposal. That's huge in so many communities. I'm going to move some around here just so that we can see them. Encourage homeowners to plant natives in their property. Yeah, really great ideas. So I'm going to make my way over to our last goal. And then I'll pull you all along with me in about 10 seconds. So goal number 5 is all about groundwater and drinking water resources. So groundwater and surface water, but that we protect them as clean and abundant resources. I'm going to bring everyone to me now. Okay. So everyone should be looking at goal number 5 now in this new board. We've got a couple of ideas already populated on here, and enforce deed restrictions and other constraints on pesticide use, protect the Barnes Aquifer recharge area from development, enforce deed restrictions. That's a duplicate there. Create a public swimming area that's safe if that's possible. Yeah, that's, that's been a big topic in a lot of communities for a long time, but I will say specifically since the pandemic, this summer highlighted this issue for a lot of communities along the Connecticut River, that people were out and about more than ever and they were hot. And so they went to the rivers, they went to Connecticut, they went to the small tributaries, and a lot of communities were struggling with the fact that they may not have really been prepared for that amount of people to be accessing these water resources. Concerns about erosion, concerns about neighbors, and so on. So that's a conversation that's happening in a lot of communities right now. Educate, 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 yeah. Ensure no old factory waste and sediment in Lower Mill and Nash ponds. Certainly discourage the use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides. Generally protecting the Barnes Aquifer recharge areas from development. Couple here to reduce or eliminate lawns. Oops. I'm going to move those together. Incentivizing less lawns. More ideas about bioswales and rain gardens. Educate about lawn care. Whoop, that's funny. Okay. Wetlands protection bylaw. Yeah, that's something that it came up in the last plan and has already been something that we brought into the update of some of the chapter work that we've been working on. Seek green energy power for wellheads. So that's a great idea. That gets into climate resilience as well, for keeping that water source active during power outage without needing to use a fossil fuel-based generator.
Hey, Emily, that's the 3-minute mark for this one.
Okay, thanks. Let's see here. Protect any lands that become available in Broad Brook watershed. A garden tour contest to promote non-lawns. Another great idea.
That's a really good one.
encourage organic gardening practice in public green space. Yeah, that's nice. That's getting a couple thumbs up. You know, encouraging it is one thing, but I'd say you want to do a lot of outreach and education if you do something like that. A lot of good signage, get your artist community involved to help people really bring attention to what's happening if you're doing something like that. I'm going to move this, discourage unnecessary water use for lawns. I'm going to move that over with the other lawn ideas here. Oops. Hold a farm tour route of local farms. Yeah. Some more regulatory ideas, incorporate low impact development into the subdivision regulations. Promote rain barrels. Ban nips. That has come up in a number of communities that I've worked in. They end up in your stormwater system. We'll move education around littering up with this other education idea. And teach how to grow organic sealed lawn. Also about education. Use more green infrastructure for recharge.
And Emily, as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you a question. I chatted and I think I saw Cassie's response, but for people who might watch this later at home or like a recording of this, and if they really want to provide some comments on these goals as they watch this video, I think what we talked about was they could email them, and as long as it gets received within a reasonable amount of time, we can incorporate it into this work. So we have two options for the email, which is planning@easthamptonma.gov or conservation@easthamptonma.gov. And so if you're watching this later from home and you feel like you have an idea that you haven't heard or just want to provide it anyway, feel free to email either of those email addresses and we'll incorporate it as we go.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks, Jeff. And some of you might see me taking the thoughts that you put into a shape and adding it to a sticky note, and just doing that to make sure that everything gets captured when we do the export of this thing. So this is great. Again, a lot of really, really good ideas. I'm loving the emojis. We're getting a lot of smiley faces and hearts and thumbs up and smiley face with heart eyes. So that's great. So yeah, this was our last goal. At this point, I think we can probably jump back. I'm going to take back the screen in the PowerPoint, and I can't pull you all to the PowerPoint, so that'll be on you. You'll stay on this Miro screen until you X out of it. But know that we're capturing all of this input and information. We're going to be sifting through it over the next couple of weeks, and everything that you have contributed here is not only extremely appreciated, but will be super, super valuable to the process. So with that, let me do this. I'll grab this and do that, and then I'm gonna screen share. All right, so we made it. Thank you all so much for sticking with us. I had a lot of fun with this. I hope you did too. I want to just quickly talk about the next steps in our process, and I've already said some of this. You've got that same timeline on the bottom of this slide. Our contract with the city goes through early spring of 2021. So really getting to that draft plan for agency review in in early March is our goal. So leading up to that, we'll be synthesizing all the information from this meeting, from the public survey, again, open till I think November 15th is the date, through next week. And any emails we get as a response to this meeting. The public draft of the plan body should be ready by the end of the calendar year. We want to get that on live for people to take a look at before the public meeting, before the next public meeting. So that's the goal. It might be end of December, it might be early January. And then that next public meeting would be in January. Date to be announced, and we will put that out on all of the social media and all of the various ways that Jeff makes announcements about public meetings. And we want you to come back. We'll be talking about the action plan that we come up with between now and then, and asking for your input on that. And we want to make sure that we are hearing you and that we are understanding the needs of the community appropriately. So that's where we're going from here. Again, if you'd like to receive updates on our progress, notifications about the next public meeting, you can look at the website or the Facebook pages. You could also send us your email if you haven't already. There's a place in the survey to provide your email address if you want to be included in a group email about when the next meeting is. So you can do that as well. If you've already taken the survey and you didn't leave your email and you want to be a part of it, you can put your email right now into the chat box. Again, it's private. It's only going to the presenters here, so we could grab that from you and add you to the list. So,
yeah. Emily, I just want to say a couple quick things. I really appreciate this. As we move forward, people who are on this call or listening later, you can access information about this project at easthamptonma.gov/OSRP. So that's our website, and that's how we're kind of getting the most information to people. But I did want to put a plug in. I know that Facebook is not for everybody, but it is currently one of our best ways to interact with people and at least keep people up to speed. So that's the planning department. Easthampton Planning Department on Facebook is a great way. If you haven't liked or followed it, it's important. We try to share information there. And then I just wanted to thank Emily in particular. This was great. We got a couple positive comments for this and the Miro in particular. I think Emily learned how to do this just recently. And I mean, this is a new way that we might be interacting with people for some time. I just really want to applaud Emily because this has been really fun and different. And it's important that people know that we're trying really hard to keep up our engagement, even though we're in a pandemic and we can't see people in person, but we're trying really hard. So I give Emily a lot of credit for taking a lot of time to learn this program. So I just wanted to give you that plug, and I really appreciate it.
thanks, Jeff. It's it's all a learning process, and I'm really happy with some of the tools we're coming up with. So this has been a great group to figure it out with. So that's all I've got for tonight. Again, we are so grateful for everyone for participating and sharing this time with us and sharing your thoughts. And we hope to see you again at the next one.
Great. Yes. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.